South Carolina lawmakers will return to Columbia in January to tackle a host of issues. Today, I talk one-on-one with State Representative Lee Hewitt of House District 108, parts of Charleston and Georgetown, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook.
State Representative Lee Hewitt, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Well, thank you for having me again, Quintin. It's always great to do your interviews, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to you and your family.
Well, likewise, needless to say, you are the state representative for House District 108, which covers parts of Charleston and Georgetown counties. And I know that you have been a member of the South Carolina House of Representatives since 2018. So tell me, State Representative, what's new, what's now in House District 108?
Well, certainly, Quintin, as I've said in the past, I know I had the most beautiful district in the state. I mean, I have 60 miles of oceanfront and marsh and creeks going all the way from Murrells Inlet down to almost Isle of Palm. So McClellanville, Owendale, Georgetown, is all probably the most beautiful part of our state. And we've got a lot of growth going on in our area. And, with growth comes issues, good and bad. And I've really enjoyed working on some of those, just helping the area with the growth, helping achieve some funding, finding some properties that are just sitting there surplus from the state, able to get those back to the county so that they can repurpose those, get them back on the tax rolls, working with shrimpers, crabbers, trying to help them keep their livelihood. As you know, that's a tough thing to do. And, so it's a lot of different areas that I get to work with that's really enjoyable.
Break it down, State Representative. Where exactly do you see the growth right now in House District 108?
Well, certainly, you've got Mount Pleasant growing quickly towards Owendale and McClellanville.
Yes.
And, there's really some angst among the residents in that they like what they have. And, it's coming at them like a freight train. From the other side, Horry County is busting at the seams, and it is starting to push into Georgetown County now. So it's like a train coming at both ends of Highway 17, heading straight for my district.
Wow. So with that growth, as you mentioned, State Representative, what has been bad and what has been good with that growth?
Well, certainly, the bad has been increased traffic and impact on infrastructure. As down in Charleston, how it can be, when I'm in Charleston, I know I need to be on 526 or off of it by 3 o'clock. When I'm on Highway 17 in Pawleys Island, Litchfield, in that area, I know that by 5 o'clock, it's gonna get packed. And that's in the off season, not including the big tourist time of the year when you have a lot of influx into the area. So, certainly the most impactful has been on our road system. Also, our local governments are struggling with funding for keeping up, with what they need to provide, increased police, fire, facilities, and all. So, it's across the board. It's kind of, you have to front end load the cost of those to try and handle the impact. And it's one that I think everybody's struggling with keeping up with, kind of feels like we're getting further and further behind.
So as we sit here, and there's a C-17 right above me, so I hope you can hear me, but where exactly, in which counties that you actually represent, State Representative, do they actually need funding right now, and what do they need funding for?
Well, I think both counties need it equally. If you look at Charleston and the growth that's happening, certainly funding for roads, increased water sewer is needed there. Georgetown County, Charleston's, in between the two counties, Charleston is a very rich county compared to Georgetown, because Georgetown, if you take away the Waccamaw Neck, that one area generates 80% of the tax revenue for Georgetown County. So when you get to Andrews, the city of Georgetown, Choppy, and those areas, it's a very poor and very rural county. So, to me, if you had to ask me which county needs more help, I would say it's Georgetown, just because it's so rural in nature and it doesn't have the tax base to provide the what's needed from an infrastructure standpoint.
Wow. So God knows I love Georgetown. I love going down to Front Street whenever I can get up there. But what exactly is the tax base right now for that area?
Well, the tax base, first of all, is growing. Glad you mentioned Front Street. If no one has been to Front Street in the past few years, I really encourage you to make a day trip to Georgetown. It is, what's happening there is tremendous. So what's going to happen in the future? There was a 40-acre site that was owned by the State Ports Authority that basically has been sitting there idle for years. Well, through a proviso that I was able to put in the budget, that property is now transferred to Georgetown County. That's 40 acres of waterfront property that's right at the end of Front Street. So, by instead of letting it sit there stagnant, the county is now in the process of having to do some environmental cleanup and assessments of the property, getting it ready, and then we'll be doing a master plan in which to develop it. On top of that, you've got Horry Georgetown Tech, which in this past year's budget, we were able to get money where it will be starting a boat manufacturing training facility. Nice. So, and the good thing about that is we have, I can't remember, 30 or 40 boat manufacturers in the state. They contributed to this school. So they have bought into it. So, you look at that, they eye Georgetown County as an opportunity. Also, on the south end of Georgetown, on Penny Royal, the last deep water industrial site left in the state of South Carolina is sitting there with a lot of activity on it. So the future is very, very bright for Georgetown. We have just got to get it there. And when that happens, you're probably going to see Mount Pleasant and Georgetown will end up connecting.
Wow. So how do you prepare for that right now, State Representative?
Well, you just have to work with your local planners, see how they're laying out their zoning, their future land use maps,
right.
Coordinate with DOT, coordinate with different state agencies, whether it be DHEC or somebody like that, and, kind of try and be ahead of the curve so that growth doesn't happen ahead of all the plans being in place by the county. And I'm really proud of Georgetown County right now. I met with some county council people yesterday. They see this coming, and so they are taking steps to be prepared. So they'll be ready instead of trying to play catch up.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of catch up going on in other parts of your particular district. So what do you want to help with that in that regard?
Well, I'm certainly there, ready to help any of my county or city governments, and whether it's Mount Pleasant, whether it's Allendale, McClellanville, I'm constantly on the phone with them, helping them connect with the proper state agencies on where they need help, i.e., whether it be increased rural health care for some of the rural parts, whether it be road improvements and all within the areas where you have some rapid development getting ready to happen, whether it be industrial or residential. So, it's just trying to be the facilitator to help get these projects going.
And where do you see that rapid infrastructure happening in those areas right now?
Well, certainly with the port property, as they develop that, it's very limited access to get in and out of there. We're going to have to look at that. On the Waccamaw Neck, certainly with the growth that's happening there, we've got to look at ways for hurricane evacuation to try and get people out of harm's way. The interesting thing is Horry County, the southern part of Horry County, their hurricane evacuation route is through the Waccamaw Neck. So we have to not just look at the numbers of the Waccamaw Neck, but also look at Horry County and the numbers that are coming in. So what do we need to do to be able to get, you're talking about, probably hundreds of thousands of people because of the growth, getting them out of harm's way. Down in Mount Pleasant, certainly 526, you see the traffic impact that you have there. How does that factor into growth and then being able to get, traffic flowing from Mount Pleasant and Allendale and McClellanville into those areas?
What do you see the pace of growth heading in the next 5 to 10 years for those areas?
Well, I just see them running up Highway 17. I see Mount Pleasant and Georgetown, Allendale, McClellanville, just kind of eventually at one time connecting together. If you look at, what's interesting now is the amount of people that are living in Georgetown that are actually driving to Mount Pleasant to work, whether it be Boeing or wherever. We have a lot of residents because of the affordability of housing that have picked Georgetown, and it's a 45-minute drive for them. Well, that's not that long when you think about it. So, you know, people don't realize it, but those areas are really interconnected, and they're going to be more so as we move forward.
So currently, right now, what is the price of home in House District 108?
Well, I mean, in House District 108, it's probably, I'd have to look, it's probably over 500,000. But if you get just outside of my district, which in the city of Georgetown or even in Andrews,
Right.
you know, it's $250,000, $300,000. You look at Mount Pleasant, it's over 800,000. So, you know, when you're talking about a family and you've got children, you know, and you can buy a house for 300,000 versus 800,000, then, you know, that certainly is, and not only that, but you can get an acre or two of land.
There you go.
You know, you're not on top of each other. So there's a quality of life that a lot of people are finding by doing that commute. But as more people move this way, all that's doing is going to help those two areas connect.
Wow. And State Representative, I want to ask you this as well, but how many single family homes do you need right now to keep up with this growth that's coming to your area?
You know, Quintin, that's a good question. I don't know. I do know that the national home builders are buying up property in the Georgetown, the Andrews area, going up 17 towards McClellanville.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like every time I go down to Mount Pleasant or McClellanville or Allendale, it seems like I see more construction happening down that way. So, you know, the question, I guess the hard question is, how many people are still going to continue moving here for the jobs that we're creating in South Carolina's booming right now? You know, so, you know, as you look at the industrial growth and all that, I just don't see where you can put a number on that. I just think housing's going to continue to grow.
So where do you see the industrial growth heading next in your district?
Well, I mean, I see it going out south of Georgetown, out in the Penny Royal area. You know, you got the industrial site on the Sandpit River, deep water. That's where the industry is. That's where the airport is. That's where Horry Georgetown Tech is. It has all the training labs and all that industries need. They can help train the workforce. You know, so I mean, the growth is going to head that way towards down 17 south, heading towards McClellanville.
Huh, wow. So let me ask you this, State Representative. How many jobs do you need right now to prepare yourself and your constituents and that area for that type of growth that's coming?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, it depends upon the growth that comes. I don't know. Supposedly somebody looking at the industrial site, well, who is that? And how many jobs are they going to bring? You know, if boat manufacturers locate here, or you know, outboard motor, because you have a Yamaha training facility at Horry Georgetown Tech, if they put a manufacturing facility here, how much is that going to take? The Georgetown primarily has been Georgetown Steel, you know, 3V Chemical. It's had a lot of forestry jobs and that kind of stuff. But as you move more into manufacturing, I mean, is that 1,000, 2,000, 3,000? You don't know. All I know is we've got the land to handle it. We've got Horry Georgetown Tech there to train. We've got everything in place for whoever wants to come to locate and train and get their industry up and running.
What type of industry would be ideal for that area right now?
Well, I mean, certainly you look at what's happening in Charleston. The tech jobs, you know, the suppliers to Boeing, the suppliers to BMW, to the Sprinter van, you know, not that you're going to get a Boeing to locate in Georgetown County, but they need people to supply them the parts that they need. So that's who I see located into this area. Now there's no more industrial deep water sites in Charleston. So who's that user that needs that 1,000 acres of deep water access on the Sandpit River so they can get cargo in and out? I mean, you know, I'm not sure who that is, but, you know, I see us more as a bedroom community to the big companies that have located in the Charleston area.
So let me ask you this, Representative Hewitt. What type of incentives would you have to bring these people, those types of companies and jobs to the area?
Well, I mean, that would be up to the Department of Commerce. I mean, I don't have any, but certainly, you know, the Department of Commerce has been very, very active. You see what they've done with Scout Motors, see what they've done with the battery plants down in Charleston, over in Florence.
Oh,
I
yes.
mean, you know, because Georgetown County is somewhat of a relatively poor county, there's some stepped up incentives to get some industry there. So that would be a great question to ask the Department of Commerce. Unfortunately, I wish they'd let me do that, but they don't.
Oh, I completely understand. No worries at all. So, how can you actually make your district stay consistent as a bedroom community and still welcome these industries into the area?
Well, I mean, certainly, I think that's a function of planning, which goes back to the county. They're in the comprehensive land use plan, which Georgetown County is going through that right now. They're updating their comp plan by state law. So, you know, I think that's up to the citizens of the counties, the residents, to say, what do we want to look like in 10, 20, 30 years. So I know Georgetown County is going through that process right now, and I look forward to kind of seeing what they come up with.
I wish I had more time, but I got to run to the next interview. But I hope to get you back on in February, March, on a Friday when you're out of the legislative session, and talk some more about these issues and talk about that child learning law that you want to get passed and get more strengthened in the State House. But for now, State Representative Lee Hewitt, thank you for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin, thank you for having me, and look forward to seeing you after session, when session starts.
Likewise, absolutely.